I used to do maintenance inspections for old municipal properties scheduled for demolition or repurposing. Half the time, it was just empty warehouses or forgotten water towers. The other half? It was places like Barclay Regional Airport. Barclay isn't on any modern flight maps anymore. It's not even on Google Maps unless you know exactly what to type. It's a rotting concrete husk out in eastern Kentucky, tucked between coal country and a nature preserve. Used to be a mid-sized regional airport back in the 70s, but air traffic dried up in the late 90s, and it officially shut down after September 11th, when new TSA regulations made it too expensive for small-town terminals to keep up. That was the excuse, anyway. Locals say different. I was sent there in late October, just as the leaves were falling and fog started creeping in heavy around dusk. The contract came through my company's usual channels. Some real estate development firm in Louisville bought the land and wanted an updated environmental safety report before they began demolition. No big deal. It was supposed to be a one-day gig. Check the foundation, document the layout, scan for asbestos and mold. In and out. Except I never should have gone alone. When I got there, the first thing I noticed was how quiet it was. No birds, no wind, not even the crunch of leaves underfoot. The parking lot had cracked down the middle like something had tried to claw its way out from underneath, and tall grass grew in thick tufts between faded yellow lines. I parked near the old departures entrance. Big, blocky letters, half rusted off, still read, Terminal B. The main doors were chained shut, but I found a side entrance behind the security fence, half covered in kudzu. It looked like someone had broken in years ago. The lock was snapped, and the door frame bent like it had been pried open. I remember thinking it looked more ripped than forced. I had a flashlight, but I didn't use it at first. Enough light filtered in through the dirty windows. The interior smelled like mildew and stale jet fuel. A big atrium opened up with rows of dead escalators and a flickering departures board still cycling through destinations that didn't exist anymore: Asheville, Dayton, Toledo. The power shouldn't have even been on. I checked my phone. No signal. Not even one bar. Now, I've walked through a lot of abandoned places. Hospitals, schools, old malls swallowed by weeds. There's always a certain stillness. But Barclay had something else. A kind of pressure. Like the air was heavier inside. Like the walls were holding their breath. I was about halfway through my inspection when I saw it. Not a ghost, not some shadowy figure, just a door. One that wasn't on the blueprints. It was tucked behind a luggage claim carousel, mostly hidden by a rotting partition wall. Steel, windowless, and painted the same color as the surrounding concrete, like it wasn't supposed to stand out. But it had a new-looking keypad. No dust, no rust. And faint boot prints on the ground, heading straight for it. Boot prints that weren't mine. And here's the thing that made my stomach turn: all the other floors were covered in grime, layers of it. But the floor in front of that door had been swept clean. I didn't touch the keypad. I didn't even get too close. But when I leaned in to inspect it, I swear to God I heard something behind the door. A dragging sound. Like someone pulling a suitcase. Only slower. Heavier. Like something was waiting. I backed away from that door real slow, like if I moved too fast it'd know. I didn't know what it was, but the dragging sound had already stopped. Dead silence again. I tried to laugh it off, you know? Maybe it was just rats. Or water pipes. Or my nerves screwing with me. I'd been alone in dead buildings before, heard plenty of weird noises. But something about that door, it felt like a boundary. Like a line I wasn't supposed to cross. Still, my curiosity had teeth. I took a few photos, kept a wide berth, and wrote down the door's location to check against the original floor plan. Spoiler, it wasn't there. I moved on toward the back offices near baggage handling. The further in I went, the more intact everything seemed. Computers still sat on desks. Coffee mugs with faded airline logos. Even a half-eaten vending machine Snickers bar, still in its wrapper, buried behind a desk. Expired in 2003. And that's when I found the security room. Door slightly ajar, smell of mildew sharp in my nostrils. Inside was the typical setup, rows of dusty monitors, a wall of VHS tapes, ancient analog equipment. I was about to turn around when I saw it. One screen was still on. No static. No flicker. Just a clear, real-time feed. It showed the hallway I'd just walked through. And then it changed. The image jumped. Same hallway, same angle, but now there was someone standing there. A man. Or what looked like one. Pale face, no visible features. Wearing an old ground crew vest, the kind from the 90s. Bright orange with the Barclay Regional logo, a bird in mid-flight. But there was something off about his proportions. Shoulders too broad. Arms too long. And his feet, they didn't quite touch the ground. I whipped around to check the hallway. Empty. Back to the screen. Still there. No movement. Then the screen went black. And every monitor in the room flickered on at once, showing different parts of the airport, check-in counters, boarding gates, bathrooms. Every one of them empty. Except for one. That hidden door. Still shut. Still quiet. But something was crouched in the corner of the frame, just out of reach of the lens. You could only see the shape of it when the light flickered just right. Like it was waiting for the power to fail. And then, as if hearing my thoughts, the lights cut out. Total darkness. For a solid 5 seconds, I stood frozen. Then I heard the carousel behind me creak. Not in a mechanical way. More like, wait. Something stepping onto it. I turned my flashlight on finally. The carousel was empty. Except now, the door beside it, the one with the keypad, was slightly open. Just a few inches. Enough to see the dark beyond. And I swear, I heard breathing coming from the other side. Not fast. Not panicked. Just waiting. I should have left right then. Just turned and booked it. But something in me needed to understand. Like if I walked away, I'd spend the rest of my life wondering what was behind that door. And worse, who else might find it? I stepped toward it, flashlight trembling in my grip. The keypad no longer glowed. Whatever backup power it had must have died when the lights cut out. The door hung open just wide enough to squeeze through. But I didn't go in. Not yet. Instead, I followed protocol, snapped a photo of the keypad, the open door, even recorded a bit of video, narrating quietly. Unauthorized entry found behind Carousel 3. Unknown power source. Possible signs of recent access. That's when I noticed something else. The hallway near the door? It had a slight slope. Barely noticeable, but once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. The airport was built flat, this I knew from the plans. But this hallway dipped, just a bit, as if it were sinking towards something buried beneath the foundation. I slid my boot gently across the floor. The tile was smooth. Too smooth. Like it had been replaced. That's when I made the call I always told myself I'd never make. I radioed base. We were issued emergency SAT units for dead zones like this, and mine had been stuffed in my bag untouched for years. I switched it on, waited for the static to clear, and hit the direct line. No answer. Just silence, then a soft click. Then a voice I didn't recognize, low and mechanical. Do not proceed. My blood went cold. I tried again. This time, the voice was different. Clipped. Like it was mimicking human speech but didn't fully understand it. Do not proceed. Error. Gate closed. I turned it off. Threw it back in my bag. That was the moment I realized this job wasn't a routine inspection. It was a loose end someone forgot to tie off. Or hoped wouldn't be followed. Backtracking through the terminal, I found a stairwell that led down to what looked like a long-forgotten maintenance level. The sign read, Service, Gate B3 Luggage Routing Substation C. It wasn't on my blueprints. But the door was ajar, hinges rusted and paint peeled to hell. As I stepped inside, the temperature dropped fast. The air down there was dense, like it had never been disturbed. Like it wasn't meant to be. I followed the tunnel. Pipes lined the ceiling, some leaking, some completely dry and humming faintly with unseen pressure. My flashlight caught patches of mold, odd growths that looked more like burns than fungus. Then, maybe 50 feet in, I saw the second keypad. But this one was torn open. Exposed wires dangled like veins, and just beyond it was another door. This one hung wide open. And inside? Rows of old, rusted luggage carts. All empty. Except one. It held a body. Or what was left of one. TSA uniform. Half a badge still pinned to the collar. Skull caved in. Fingers broken like they tried to claw their way out of something. And carved into the wall above him, in long, ragged gouges. No flight. No end. That's when I heard the intercom buzz back to life. A woman's voice, soft, distorted, like it was playing from a warped cassette. Last call for Gate B3. Passenger awaiting departure. And then I heard the carousel upstairs spin. Once. Slowly. Deliberately. I didn't run. Not because I wasn't scared, I was. I could feel it in my bones, the kind of fear that settles in your organs, like your body knows something you haven't processed yet. But I couldn't run. Something about the intercom voice rooted me to the floor, like a thread had hooked into my spine. The way she said it. Passenger awaiting departure. It wasn't just creepy. It sounded expectant. Like it was about me. I backed out of the service corridor slowly, 1 foot at a time, never turning my back on that thing in the cart. It wasn't just decomposed. It was processed. Like it had been there a long time, but somehow, also recently disturbed. As I stepped into the stairwell again, my flashlight flickered. It had been solid all day, but now it gave this nervous, shivering glow. The shadows danced, and I could have sworn, for half a second, I saw someone behind me. Not just someone. The man from the monitor. That long, stretched-out figure in the orange ground crew vest. Only this time, he was closer. He didn't move. He just watched, standing half in shadow. Like he was waiting to see what I would do next. And even though his face was smeared into an almost featureless blur, I felt his attention like heat on my skin. I snapped my eyes away, climbed the stairs fast, 2 at a time, heart slamming. My boots echoed on the concrete louder than they should have. Too loud. When I got back to the main floor, I realized something had changed. The layout. I know how that sounds. I do. But the terminal was different. The boarding gates were gone. The check-in kiosks had vanished. Where there had been windows letting in the last light of day, there were now blank walls, covered in faded ads for long-defunct airlines and destination posters with names I didn't recognize. Cities I was pretty sure didn't exist. Fly Barclay Air to Carswell. Non-stop comfort to Red Pines. Welcome to Durham Port. I felt the walls closing in then, not physically, but mentally. Like the longer I stayed, the more the building remembered what it used to be. Like I wasn't just walking through it, I was becoming part of it. And then the intercom clicked on again. Boarding for Flight 733. Final passenger, please proceed to Gate B3. There were no gates. None I could see anyway. But the carousel? It had started spinning again. Slow. Methodical. And something was coming up from the chute. A suitcase. Old. Leather. Burned at the edges. Smoke-stained tags still dangling off the handle. It stopped halfway out of the opening. Hung there like a baited hook. I approached it, barely breathing. My hand shook as I reached for the tag. The name burned into it read. Robert Klein. That's me. Not a common name. Not with that spelling. But it wasn't just the name that made my mouth go dry. It was the date. Baggage checked, October 31st, 1998. The exact day Barclay Regional officially closed its doors. I hadn't even lived in Kentucky back then. I stood there staring at that tag, the old leather cracking under my fingertips, trying to make sense of it. I hadn't set foot in Kentucky until 2006. I'd never flown into Barclay. Never even heard of the place until the inspection order showed up. And yet there it was. My name. My luggage. Dated 7 years before I ever moved south. I opened the suitcase. It wasn't empty. Inside was a single item, a folded, slightly blood-stained Barclay Regional security jacket, my size. And tucked in the inner pocket? A Polaroid. I held it up to the light, my fingers going numb. The photos showed the terminal I was standing in, same carousel, same walls. Only in the picture, I was already there. Standing by the suitcase. Wearing the same jacket. Staring into the camera. But it wasn't just my expression that got to me, it was the eyes. They looked hollow. Like whatever version of me was in that picture had seen something he couldn't ever forget. Something that had followed him home. I dropped the photo. That's when the lights flickered again. The entire terminal hummed with this low, pulsing sound, like a jet engine spooling up from deep underground. The kind of sound that vibrates in your chest. The kind that knows your name. And then came the announcement. Flight 733 now boarding. Final call. Mr. Klein, please proceed to gate B3. The voice was different now. Not mechanical. Not distorted. It sounded like my mother. She died in 2011. I backed away from the carousel. Every instinct told me to run. But I realized I didn't know where to run. The exits were gone. Replaced by endless corridors, each one just a little darker than the last. Still, I turned and bolted toward the corridor behind the check-in counter, hoping to find a loading dock or emergency exit. My flashlight danced wildly over walls that looked warped, almost melted. I passed what looked like a child's lost shoe, perfectly clean in a hall coated with dust. Then the hallway widened. And I found it. Gate B3. Exactly where it wasn't before. The metal detector was still set up, flickering red lights casting eerie shadows across the floor. Beyond it was a long, black jetway, half collapsed, held up by twisted scaffolding. The sign above the gate flickered violently. 7:33 on time. But there was something else. Someone was standing just inside the jetway. Tall. Slouched. Arms too long. Same ground crew vest. Same featureless face. It raised one arm slowly and pointed down the jetway, like a grim usher. Inviting me in? Behind me, I heard the terminal doors slam shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. No turning back. But here's what really made me lose it. From inside the jetway, I heard movement. Not footsteps. Dragging. Just like before. Something heavy. Coming closer. And then I heard the voice again, this time directly behind me. Robert, it's time to go. I didn't turn around. Not at first. The voice behind me, it wasn't just close. It was intimate. Like it was whispering directly into my skull. It knew me. Not just my name or my face, but my thoughts. My fears. My regrets. It didn't ask again. It didn't need to. But I turned. Of course I did. Standing no more than 5 feet away was a man in a Barclays security uniform. Face mostly intact, skin pale, paper thin, stretched too tight over sharp bones. His name tag? R. Klein. My breath caught. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the suitcase I'd dropped earlier. He looked just like me. But older. Weathered. His eyes were 2 shallow pits, the whites gone milky, the irises cloudy and gray. Not blind, just hollow. But he smiled. And I swear it was the saddest thing I've ever seen. Can't fight it, he said in a voice I could barely hear. I tried. For years. There's no out, Rob. He stepped closer, limping, as if his left foot was shattered and never set right. You come here, you stay. The terminal doesn't let go. You think they shut it down for money? No, man, they sealed it. Tried to bury it. He pointed toward the gate. Every few years, it calls someone back. Anyone with a name. The job. The thread. You're just the next one. I'm not part of this, I said. My voice came out hoarse. I'm not you. He chuckled, bitter and broken. You will be. You think you've got choices, but this place, it rewrites. Every step you take in here, it unravels you a little more. He gestured around us. You notice the layout shifting? That's not a trick. That's the terminal fitting you in. Like a glove. It's learning your shape. Your history. Then his smile dropped. You're already in the system. I backed away, toward the nearest emergency exit door. My fingers found the bar and pushed. It wouldn't budge. He didn't follow. Just watched. You've checked in, he said softly. The only way out now. He pointed at the jetway again. Is through. Then he began to glitch. That's the only word I have for it. Like a corrupted video file. His body jerked, twitched, reset positions too fast for the eye to follow. Limbs blurring in and out of place. Head snapping side to side. And then, he vanished. Just blinked out. And the intercom blared again, louder than ever before. Deafening. All passengers to gate B3. Boarding is now mandatory. Every light in the terminal went out at once. Only the jetway remained lit. That long, black tunnel stretching into nowhere. And from inside it, footsteps. Not one set. Many. Coming toward me. I didn't breathe. I couldn't. The footsteps echoing from the jetway weren't uniform. Some were slow and shuffling, others too fast, like something scampering on all fours. There was no rhythm, just chaos, like a crowd trying to walk with legs that had forgotten how. Then the voices started. Low and fragmented, like snippets of overhead announcements caught mid-sentence. Passenger remains unidentified. Flight delay indefinite. Arrival estimated never. I pressed myself against the wall, hands trembling, praying I'd wake up. That this was some kind of gas leak hallucination or a fever dream brought on by mold. But I knew better. I could feel the reality of this place. The weight of it. This terminal wasn't haunted. It was feeding. I needed to move. Fast. I looked around. No emergency lights, no clear exit. But then I remembered the stairwell. The maintenance level. The other way down. My flashlight had been flickering, dying slowly, but I clicked it back on and ran. No time for silence now. My boots pounded across the tiled floor, every step echoing like a gunshot. Behind me, I could still hear the footsteps, closer now. Dozens of them. Maybe more. I reached the stairwell and threw myself down the first flight, nearly twisting my ankle on the landing. The air grew colder with every step, thicker. Like I was descending under the airport, beneath the foundation. That's when I saw it. A service tunnel I hadn't noticed before. Narrow. Low ceiling. Cables hanging like vines. It stretched deep, deeper than the building should have allowed. But carved above the entrance, in black marker or maybe blood, was a message. Arrivals only. I had no choice. I ducked inside. The tunnel was tighter than I expected, barely wide enough for my shoulders. The walls pulsed with faint electrical noise, buzzing, flickering, almost like breathing. The deeper I went, the more the floor sloped downward. The noise of the terminal faded. And then it hit me. The smell. Rot. Not just human decay, this was different. Wet, fetid, burned. Like rubber and skin and metal all melted together. I gagged, covering my mouth, but I didn't stop. I reached a fork in the tunnel. To the left, more darkness. To the right, light. Not bright. Just a pale glow. Sickly yellow, like fluorescence filtered through fog. I followed it. It opened into a wide chamber. Concrete, no paint. And in the center? A massive carousel. Like the one upstairs, only older. Rusted. Massive. And it was turning. Luggage spilled out of the chute, one piece at a time, and they were all burned. Tags melted off, some still smoldering. And above it, in flickering neon letters. Baggage claim, Flight 733. That's when I realized, this wasn't just the underbelly of the airport. This was where the passengers ended up. Every suitcase that hit the belt. I recognized them. A backpack I'd had in college. A duffel bag I lost during a trip in 2009. Even a laptop case that had been stolen from my car 3 years ago. All of it. Returned. Claimed. Then I heard a soft, shuffling sound behind me. And turned just in time to see a figure emerge from the wall. Not walk through it. Emerge. Like it had been grown into the concrete and was peeling itself loose. It wore a pilot's uniform. The face was almost human. And it said, "Flight 733 has arrived." The thing in the pilot's uniform stepped toward me. Its feet didn't quite touch the ground, hovered an inch or two above the concrete, toes curled like it had forgotten how gravity worked. Its smile was too wide, skin pulled tight at the corners, eyes two tiny reflective pits like polished metal. It didn't blink. Didn't need to. "Welcome home," it said in that same distorted intercom voice I'd heard before. Except now I realized, it wasn't a recording. It was it. It had been speaking through the whole system all along. I took a step back. My boots slipped slightly on the damp concrete. I almost dropped the flashlight. "Where am I?" I asked stupidly. The thing tilted its head, as if amused. Then it reached into its coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Yellowed. Water damaged. But when it handed it to me, slowly, fingers dragging along the back of my hand, I could still read the header. Flight 733, Passenger Manifest. I scanned the names. Most were smeared beyond recognition. A few still legible. Michael Tran. Karen Blythe. Jonathan Reese. I didn't recognize them until I did. All of them. People I'd crossed paths with in small, forgotten ways. The guy who sold me a used car in college. A girl I worked with for 2 weeks at a summer camp. A neighbor from an apartment I lived in briefly in Cincinnati. And at the very bottom of the page, Klein, Robert, boarding confirmed. Next to it, in smaller print, arrived. "No," I whispered. "No, I didn't board. I haven't gone anywhere." The pilot stepped closer. I could smell him now, burned hair and ozone. "You always board," he said. "You just don't always remember." Then he pointed to the carousel. I turned to look, and froze. There was a coffin sliding down the chute. Charred black. Luggage tag affixed to the handle. The name stamped on it? Robert Klein. Inside my chest, something cracked. Not a rib. Something deeper. I could feel it, like my sense of time had torn, or like my past had just folded in on itself. My flashlight flickered again. This time, it died completely. In the pitch black, the pilot's voice came again. Closer now. "Your seat is ready. We cannot depart without you." I bolted. I don't know how I found my way, pure instinct. I ran down the tunnel, scraping my shoulders on the walls, heart pounding like a war drum. The air grew warmer the closer I got to the stairwell, like I was breaching some kind of invisible barrier. And then, somehow, I burst back into the upper terminal. But it wasn't the same as before. The ceiling tiles were melted. The floor looked scorched. Old blood stained the tiles in long, wide drag marks. Every screen in the terminal blinked the same message. "All passengers must depart." And standing in front of the gate again, was me. The other me. The one from the security room. But this time, he wasn't smiling. He was pointing at the door behind him. And I understood, in that moment, what the terminal was. It wasn't haunted. It was hungry. And I had checked in. I stared at him, me, standing there in front of gate B3. He looked tired now. Hollow in a different way. Like something had been scraped out of him over time, leaving just the shape of a man. His jacket was torn. Hands blackened at the fingertips, like they'd been burned or frostbitten. Or both. And he kept pointing. Behind him, the gate door pulsed with that same dull green light. Still open. Still waiting. "I didn't board," I said. "I'm not boarding. This isn't my flight." Other me shook his head slowly. You already did. I blinked. And suddenly, the terminal around me began to vibrate. A low-frequency hum beneath my feet, like engines revving in the distance. The whole place felt like it was preparing for takeoff. The intercom crackled again, louder this time. Frantic. Broken. Final call. All passengers must proceed to Gate B3. Manifest locked. Departure in T-5 minutes. I turned to run, again, but this time, the terminal shifted ahead of me. The exits? Gone. Just wall. Blank, seamless concrete, as if the building had healed itself. Every hallway now curved subtly back toward Gate B3. Like the building was funneling me down a chute. I started to sweat. Then I heard the dragging sound again. Not one but many. Dragging feet. Wheels. Limbs. Heavy and wet and close. They were coming from the sides. From the ceilings. From the vents. The other passengers. I didn't wait. I bolted for a maintenance closet I'd spotted earlier. Locked. I threw my shoulder into it, heard something crack, not the door, the bone. Didn't care. I threw myself inside and slammed the door shut behind me, barricading it with a busted mop handle. The light in there barely worked. One low emergency bulb, flickering in a soft red strobe. That's when I saw the wall. Covered in names. Scrawled in blood, ink, soot, whatever people could find. Every square inch was filled. And near the bottom? Our client still here. Right under it, a final entry. Written in thick black marker, fresh. Do not board. I sat there in the dark, heart pounding, while the hallway outside filled with footsteps. No voices now. Just movement. Waiting. Circling. Then I heard something new. The engine noise. Not just vibrations now. Roaring. Like a plane was idling just outside the terminal. But not normal, off. Too low. Too deep. Like it was coming from underground. The red bulb above me dimmed to almost nothing. Then I heard the door handle turn. Softly. Deliberately. They'd found me. The handle twisted once. Then again. Slow. Patient. Like whatever was on the other side knew I was out of options. I pressed my back against the far wall of the closet, clutching a broken mop shaft like it was a weapon. My breath came in ragged gasps. The air was thick with mold and copper and something sour, like sweat from people who'd been trapped far too long. I waited for the door to burst open. But it didn't. Instead, something slid under the gap at the bottom. A paper. Folded clean. I didn't want to touch it. But I did. It was another boarding pass. Identical to the one I'd seen in the suitcase. Except now, the departure time was now. And next to my name, someone had stamped in red block letters. Final warning. The moment I touched it, I felt it. Like a hook sank into my chest, pulling. Tugging toward the gate, even from across the building. I could see it in my mind, the walkway. The open jet bridge. The flickering figure in the pilot's uniform, grinning from the shadows. I threw the paper down and screamed. I'm not boarding! You can't make me! And the airport answered. Every light in the building snapped on at once, white, burning, searing, and then off. Like the terminal had blinked. And when it blinked, I wasn't in the closet anymore. I was standing at Gate B3. Again. Alone. Except I wasn't. The others were behind me now. Lined up. Silhouettes of passengers with no faces. Luggage clutched in broken hands. Some still bleeding. Some charred. All of them silent. And the door was open. The jetway yawning like a throat. I turned to run, and slammed straight into him. Me. Older. Hollow. The version of me I'd seen in flashes and reflections and that security feed. He didn't speak. Just looked at me, pity in his dead eyes. And slowly shook his head. I didn't board, I said again. He put a hand on my shoulder. You did, he whispered. You always do. And he pushed me through the gate. I fell forward into darkness. Not the tunnel. Not the jetway. Just black. Weightless. Endless. Until I woke up in my truck, parked outside the old terminal. Sun just rising. Dew on the windshield. For one beautiful, impossible second, I thought it had all been a dream. Then I saw the suitcase on the passenger seat. My name on the tag. Stamped. Delivered. And beneath it, in smaller font, next flight, TBA.